Hello everyone, welcome to another Exam Aid Easy tutorial with the enthusiastic tutor. Today I'll be walking us through the course GST107 Study Guide for the Distance Learner. Just before we go into it, just as I always say, just as I have been preaching before now, the need for us to go back to our materials, dust them, and begin to consume them is imperative. Why did I say that? Our exams are getting close. Very soon, in the next few weeks, we'll be starting our exam full time. Now is there is no better time than now to start. There is no better time than now to start studying the material. Your materials are the key, the path to your success in your exams. You have to take them, pick them up, dust them, consume your material from page to page. That's why we have channels like this to help for as many who doesn't have much time studying. Channels like this is born out of the burden to make studying easy, make studying seamless. You can get the audio file of this tutorial on request. As soon as you are done watching the tutorial, if you want to read your material or listen to your material again as an audio file, let me know. With this being said, let's hop right into the business of the day. So we have Module 1, Introduction to the Open and Distant Learning ODL system. Open and Distant Learning, abbreviated version of that is ODL. Now we have Module 2, Module 3, Module 4. Material, this course has about 4 modules. So in our Module 1, which is Introduction to the Open Distant Learning ODL system, we have Unit 1 of Module 1. History of the Open Distance Learning System. Characteristics of the Open and Distant Learning System. Teaching and learning in the Open Distant Learning System. So we have the Unit 1, which is the history of the Open Distant Learning System. So we have the introduction, we have the intended learning outcome, that's ILOS, outcomes, intended learning outcomes. We have the main content, definition of open and distant learning. We have the history of open and distant learning. So we have the introduction, we have the intended learning outcomes, we have the main content. Now let's go straight right into it. Now, enlarge this a little bit. Okay, definition of a distant learning. Definition of open and distant learning. The term open and distant learning is made up of two different concepts in education, namely distance education and open learning. While distant education has been around for quite a long time, as you would soon discover, open learning is a more recent phenomenon. You can have You have to understand that there has been no census definition of the twin term. Twin term meaning the two terms spoken of earlier, that is the open learning and the distant learning. Now we have But for the purpose of this course, we will make do with the definition from Commonwealth of Learning (COL) in brackets. Commonwealth of Learning (COL) 2015 defines open and distant learning as a system of teaching and learning characterized by separation of teachers and learner in time and/or space, and uses multiple media to deliver in multiple media for delivery of instruction. It also involves two-way communication and occasional face-to-face meeting for tutorials and learner-to-learner interaction. As you would get to know, this definition has tried to bring all, I beg your pardon, the attributes of the open distance learning to the fore. History of open and distant learning. As stated earlier, the term open and distant learning combines two distinct terms: distance education and open learning. While distant education is not a new concept and thus familiar to most people, open learning is relatively a newer term. In fact, instant education can be said to be forerunner of open and distant learning. I take that again. Distance education can be said to be the forerunner, like the progenitor of open and distant learning. Thus, a good starting point for the history of open and distant learning is distant education. Take that again. A good starting point for the history of open and distant learning is distance education. Now, what is distance education? We'll get to know that in a jiffy. Distance education has been defined as a field of education that focuses on teaching methods and technology with the aim of delivering teaching to students who are not physically present in a traditional educational setting, such as the classroom. It is a system aimed at creating access to learning when time or distance or both separate the source of information and the learners. Though the various developmental stages of distance education have variously demarcated to be from 3 to 5, I prefer three-stage development propounded by Schultz and Embry-Riddle 2008, and it would be followed in our history of distance education. Correspondence stage. Now we're talking about the developmental stages. As I said earlier, it was said that there are about 3 to 5, but we will be three-stage developmental, three-stage development propounded by Schultz and Embry-Riddle. Schultz is spelled Schultz and Embry is spelled Embry dash Riddle Ridele. For the purpose of as many will be listening to the audio file, so we have the first stage is correspondence stage. The earliest appearance of distance education was in the form of correspondence education. This started in the mid-19th century in Great Britain, France, Germany, and the United States. Describing the correspondence phase, Schultz, and Embry-Riddle 2008 stated that early correspondence courses, as the first recommended form of distance learning, exemplify participants' interaction through the distribution of printed material through the mail. Can I take that again? Interaction through distribution of printed material. Does that say something about our program, National Open University? It should it should ring that should ring a bell. Isaac, Sir Isaac Pittman taught shorthand by mail, and this can be said to be the first officially recognized attempt at distance education. Can I say that again? Sir Isaac Pittman spelled Pitman, taught shorthand, a form of writing. He taught it by mail, and this can be said to be the first officially recognized attempt at distance education. Pittman's correspondence courses in shorthand started in the 1840s. His corresponding courses in shorthand started in 1840s. At the degree level, the University of London was the first to offer degrees through distance education. At, at the layman's level, it was Sir Pittman's, but at the degree level, and Sir Pittman's corresponding courses in shorthand was in what year? 1840s. In the 1840s, I mean. Now, at the degree level, the University of London was the first to offer degrees through distance education. The University of London's external program was established in 1828, but was not chartered until 1858. That's about almost 20 something years. It is, if not more, it is important to note that most of the students of the program were from the Britain Commonwealth countries, including Nigeria. In the United States, correspondence study has been a noteworthy component of the University of Wisconsin delivery system since 1891. Schools Schools and Embry-Riddle, 2008. Sound and video signal stage. We've spoken about the correspondence stage. Now we are on the second stage, which is sound and video signal stage. The foundation of the second stage of distance education was laid during the World War One through the invention of the radio. Does that mean radio was invented during the World War One? I think that explains. In the United Kingdom, the National University Extension Association was organized in 1916 at the University of Wisconsin. Wisconsin is spelled Wisconsin. The first educational instruction by radio was heard in 1916. First educational instruction by radio was heard in 1916, and from that point, correspondent students began receiving instruction from both radio and postal service. It was not until 1925 that the use of radio in distance education became global. Now let's take note of these occurrences. Key occurrences. I repeat, 1916 was the ex 1916 was 1916 in the UK. University Extension Association was organized in 1916 at the University of Wisconsin. Now, the key occurrence here is that, excuse me, in the United Kingdom, the National University Extension Association was organized in the United Kingdom in 1916, and in 1925, radio in distance education became global. Now we have history of distance education. Okay, 95. The United States started the experimental radio broadcast with the College of the Air, which was later renamed the University of the Air in conjunction with University of Wisconsin in the early 1960s. The renaming was done in the early 1960s. By the end of the decade, 200 faculties, a decade is about 20 years. By the end of 20 years, which is also called a decade, 200 faculties were participating in various short courses. Gooch, 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 1968 said so. As you can see, in the picture below, we can see a lady in the background receiving information from a radio. A student, figure 1, a student learning through the radio, thus Google Images. The use of the radio was followed by the use of television. The television experiment began in 1874. Television experiment began in 1874, but educational television did not start until after the Depression, when State University of Iowa and Kansas State College produced some educational programs between 1932 and 1934. However, after permission was granted, many colleges and universities followed suit. Demiray and Eastman, 1999, stated that in today's USA, commercial and public television stations produced educational programs for distance education. 29 million students are able to receive this program at their homes or school. Computer technology stage. That is stage 3. Computer technology represented the third phase of distance education. Commenting on this phase, Coates and Embry-Riddle, 2008, said that the new 80s space age brought technology which included computers and space satellites, thereby allowing universities to offer adult education programs and refresher courses to students situated thousands of miles from the actual campuses. It is important to note the continuous development of technology continues to affect educational delivery from this time onwards. We would not comment much on this, as the use of computer technology and information technology is an integral part of open learning and would form will form part of our studies in future units. Now we have open and distant learning. Open learning is an innovative movement in education that emerged in the 1970s. I beg your pardon? A movement in education that emerged in the 1970s. It refers mainly to activities that either enhance learning opportunities with formal education system or broadened learning opportunities beyond the formal education system, says Wikipedia. The educational philosophy of open learning emphasizes giving learners choices about medium or media of learning, place and pace of study mechanism as well as entry and exit points. The combination of the philosophy of open learning and distant education dates back to open and distant learning. Open and distant learning is one of the most rapidly growing field of education, and its potential impact in all educational delivery has been greatly accentuated through the development of internet-based information technologies. and in particular the World Wide Web. UNESCO 2000 said that the first the Open University was established in 1969. 1969 was first time where Open University was established as a public distance learning and research university, and it's one of the biggest university in United Kingdom. Since this humble beginning, many other open universities have sprung up in the various regions of the world. The current trend in open universities is the movement towards internalization. In addition to the political and economical driving forces, the internalization of open and distance education is enhanced by the links to information and communication technologies (ICT). For instance, educational software is often international, and satellite and electronics network allows transmission and communication across national borders. The global classroom is no longer a concept only of our imagination or of our future. UNESCO 2000 said so. The success of the United Kingdom Open University led to the establishment of other open universities around the world. Jegede 2016 states that these include Athabasca University and Canada's Open University that were created in 1970 and were followed by Spain's National University of Distance Education in 1972 and Germany's Fern Universitat in Hagen I beg your pardon, in Hagen. Hagen is spelled Hagen in 1974. The success of the open and distance learning system in Asia cannot be overlooked. In fact, most successful open universities in the world today are in Asia. For example, there are 41 open and distance learning tertiary institutions in Asia, out of which only five are private institutions. The private institutions are Arab Open University, Open University of Malaysia, and Open University of Japan, Venkateswara Open University, and Wawasan Open University. It is worthy of note that out of these 41 universities, 17 are cited 17 are seated 17 are cited in India. Open and distant learning in Nigeria. It is important to note that the development of I beg your pardon. Open and distant learning in Nigeria. It is important to note that the development of the open and distant learning in Nigeria is rooted in a policy, the 1979 National Policy of Education (NPE). National Policy of Education has anticipated the upcoming of open and distant learning. The 1977 edition of the National Policy on Education states maximum effort will be made to enable those who can benefit from higher education to be given access to it. Such access may be through universities or correspondence courses or other or open universities or part-time and work-study program. It is unknown, however, if this was as a result of the role of distance education in the lives of many early Nigerians. As in all countries with distant education history, Nigeria also had her fair share of correspondence education, as Jegede 2016 notes. A. The Oxford University of the United Kingdom extramanual extramural studies at the University College Ibadan, which commenced in 1947, Extramural studies commenced in University College, Ibadan, which was in year 1947, enabled a good number of Nigerians thirsty for higher education but who are unable to get a place in the limited admissions into the University College, Ibadan, to do so through correspondence study. Many Nigerians sought admission as students of correspondence college in universities and institutions in the United Kingdom, while others registered as external candidates for the General Certificate of Education (GCE), both ordinary and advanced level of the University of London and Cambridge. C. Rapid Results College and Wolseley. All correspondence studies may be cited as the first set of organized distance learning programs in Africa. They are termed correspondence because they had their studies mailed from England while the students equally mailed their answers overseas to be marked. We have Nigeria also had her fair share of the radio/television stage of distance education through the English by Radio program of the Nigerian Broadcasting Program (NBC) in 1960, the Educational Television program of the National Television of Nigeria then followed the NBC 1960 initiative. The open and distance learning model was first employed at the tertiary level by Ahmadu Bello University when it established the University of the Air in 1972, and this was used for the Teachers in Service educational program in 1975. The University of Lagos followed the Ahmadu Bello University initiative in 1974 by establishing Correspondence and Open Suite Units (COSU) Correspondence and Open Suite Unit, later that later became known as Correspondence and Open Studies Institution. From COSUT it became COSIT and now known as Distant Learning Institute which is DLI. With this act, University of Lagos became the first Nigerian tertiary institution to operate the dual mode of the open and distant learning. The decision to set up an open university in Nigeria was first conceived in 1976. To put this decision into practice, the federal government set up a presidential planning committee under the chairman of Claudia under the chairmanship of Professor Afolabi Ojo to advise the government on the initiative. This committee was inaugurated on May 1, 1980. The act to back up the establishment of the Open University was passed by the National Assembly on April 20th, 1983, to demonstrate the seriousness of the Federal Republic. After 3 months, precisely on July 22, 1983, the then President of Nigeria, Alhaji Shehu Shagari, assented to the bill as passed. This led to the establishment of the Nigerian Open University (NOU) with Professor Afolabi Ojo as its Vice Chancellor. By 1984, now went into full-scale activities of screening candidates in 1984. Unfortunately, on April 25, 1984, General Muhammad Buhari, who had become the head of state of Nigeria after the civilian government had been toppled into a coup d'etat, suspended the suspended National Open University during a budget speech. Consequently, Nigeria had lost several years of the use and practice of open and distant learning (Jegede 2016). However, in 2000, a new open university with the name National Open University of Nigeria (NOW) was established during the tenure of another civilian president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. It has been on record that Chief Olusegun not only established the now, he demonstrated the relevance of the university by enrolling as a student of the university. Immediately he left office as the president. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo started with the postgraduate diploma in Christian theology, after which he went ahead to the master's degree and capped it up with a Doctor of Philosophy degree. Today, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo has made history by becoming the first doctoral graduate of Christian theology, and now it is important to note that after the establishment of now Commonwealth of Learning (COL) partnered with the university to establish the Regional Training and Research Institute for Open and Distant Learning (RETRIDAL). Regional Regional Training and Research Institute for Open and Distant Learning. Please let's take note of these abbreviations. They come often in the questions, the exam questions. In 2003, FRIDA was established with the aim of identifying and meeting the needs of open and distant learning related search and capacity building for the West African sub-region. Currently, Nigeria has many dual-mode open and distant learning institutions, as Jegede 2016 stated that institutions of higher learning that now have or are working on becoming dual-mode systems use both open and distant learning, and the traditional face-to-face as institutional modes are 20. However, National Open University of Nigeria is only mono-mode open and distant learning university in Nigeria as of today. The need for open and distant learning system in Nigeria as a result of the feelings, excuse me, as a result of the feelings in some quarters about the necessity of an open university in Nigeria, it is important to state the reasons for the establishment of the university. The carrying capacity of conventional universities. The continued increase in the population of Nigerians demanding university education in the last decade revealed that Nigeria has more university applicants unabsorbed than those admitted, despite the increase in the number of universities in the country. Umar 2006 opines that about 80% of qualified prospective students could not gain admission into the conventional universities. Supports the position. Table below gives a graphic depiction of the situation. We have a table displayed below. We have admission statistics of Nigerian students. We have the year, number of universities, number of applicants, number admitted, admitted percentage, number of not admitted. As you can see, in the year 2000, we have about number of universities at 94. We have number of applicants. We have about 1,054,300. Number of admitted out of 1 million plus that applied. We have about 118, 69, and 1 number admitted. So we have the percentage of the admitted out of the general, out of the total number of applicants, about 11%, very low. Number of not admitted, about 935, 3 and 2600 were not admitted, and we can go on and go, and the list is just there. We have the table above provides the stark reality of the Nigerian higher education situation. Considering the role and importance of education in a developing country, this is a dangerous trend. If necessary steps were not taken to address this trend by democratizing by democratizing education. Sorry, I beg your pardon, by democratizing education. Steps were not taken to address this trend by democratizing education through the use of open and distant learning, Population of Nigerians without higher education would continue to soar, and realization of any millennium developmental goal in Nigeria would be a mirage. A mirage in the sense that it's not real, not real. Yeah, mirage. We have continuous demand for higher education. In the last few decades, there has been In the last few decades, there has been a continuous demand for higher education by the employers of labor for promotion and also assessment purposes that has thrown the employees into a kind of frenzy to acquire higher education. This demand for higher education qualification by employees, coupled with the recent high rate of unemployment in the country, has made the open and distance learning system the best viable option. This is because those who are expected to improve their educational status could not risk resigning or embarking on study leave, which are rarely approved because they are not sure they would have their job back. On completing of higher educational status, we can use the educational requirement to teach in Nigeria as an example here. Sometimes ago, the minimum qualification for teachers of the primary school in Nigeria is the teacher's grade 2 certificate. This has currently been moved up to the Nigerian Certificate of Education according to Omo Ojogo 2009. As at 2009, over 400,000 primary school teachers in Nigeria do not even possess the previous minimum of teacher's grade 2 certificate. This means that unqualified 400,000 either improve their educational level or risk losing their jobs. Thus, the only viable option left for them is to use the open and data learning system that would allow them to work and learn at the same time. The need for lifelong learning. According to Jegede 2016, lifelong learning is another factor that is making open and distant learning an indispensable element in Nigeria. Describing this phenomenon, Jegede has this to say: the third index of indispensability is lifelong learning, which has taken the world by storm and now making its way to mainstream excuse me. The third index of indispensability is lifelong learning, which has taken the world by storm and now making its way to mainstream educational provisions in many countries of the world. Lifelong learning is characterized by making learning a continuous lifelong activity. Learning through a flexible, easily accessible mode, development of a learning or knowledge society, a global movement towards ODL, and the fact that we all need to make to cope with the constant change in life. We have our self-assessment, which is outline the various stages in the development of open distance learning. Okay, you can drop your answers on our WhatsApp group or use the Telegram option. So we have conclusion. From the above, it is clear that open and distance learning is the most current phase of distance education. An educational element that can be traced back over a century and a half, 777 years ago to be precise. Open and distance learning is a product of the union of distance education and the philosophy of openness come current information telecommunication technologies development, and it has a global spread. It is also worthy of note that Nigeria did not just plunge into participating in the open and distance education phenomenon but has paved and have but have paved the way for our participation since 1977 through the policy statement in the National Policy of national policy of education. National policy on education, I beg your pardon, like every other country too. Nigeria has been part of distance education since the days of the correspondence education and is also in the forefront of open distance learning activities today. Now we have summary. The recap to recap what you have learned in this unit, click on okay. There's no option of video here, the material. So that ends our unit one. About references, we have them all there.